Hello, this is Dot, and this is the re-recording of the Who is the Least Trustworthy White Woman in the Project Moon Canon. As some of you may have known, we tried this once before, and now we're trying it again. So why am I doing this? Well, I made this meme, which went kind of viral on Tumblr, and I said that if it reached 1,000 notes, I would make a tier maker on who is the least trustworthy white woman. And after organizing that, I found out it made a pretty decent outline for a presentation. We had a funny presentation night coming up, so I turned this into a full project. Now, you may be asking, why am I seeing this video again? And the answer is, some mistakes slipped through the first version. The big ones being that Rain is actually masculine presenting. It's been so long since I did the Molar Office chapter that I just didn't remember. And a lot of Asian characters slipped through. In fact, too many to really be excusable. What happened was I had so laser focused on not putting in dark-skinned characters, I didn't really critically think about some of the characters that did make it in. That's on me. Also, between then and now, Canto 7 came out, so I wanted to update with the new characters that we've seen in the most recent chapter. So, how are we defining trustworthiness? Well, we're looking for characters that are dependable, who are consistent in their actions, who generally keep their word, and whose vibes don't suck. How are we defining whiteness? Once again, vibes, skin color plays a part in it, and origin of literary source material plays another part. For example, now that we have seen in various examples of our real-world languages existing within the Project Moon universe, and we can assume that it takes place on some version of Earth, we can assume that nationalities and racial backgrounds have retained in some form. How are we defining female? She, her pronouns. A lot of characters use they, them, and it, its, but we're just going to go with she, her. We're not going to get into anything defining what a woman is beyond that. And will there be spoilers? Yes, insofar in that characters existing can be spoilers. I'm going to try not to go too deep into anything, especially not Canto 7, but if you consider it a spoiler to know that a character exists, then there will be spoilers. So, starting with Lobotomy Corporation. Angela is the assistant AI and the first character you meet. She helped you through the tutorial and is generally amicable for about the first 15 days in-game, at which point she starts becoming a lot more cold and a lot more distant, and she kills Benjamin to make the final Sapphira, and she pushes all the other Sapphira to their breaking points so that they go into meltdown. A lot of this was because of Ian, but it still doesn't change the fact that she just openly lies to you and pretty clearly wants you to die, so extremely untrustworthy. Malkuth and Elijah are the first Sapphira that you meet. She is generally pretty upstanding, though extremely insecure. She has the first meltdown you experience, and really even before that she was okay. So we'll say extremely trustworthy by our standards. Hod and Michelle. Hod is the third one of the Sapphira that you meet. In her past life as Michelle, she called the cops and that got a arbiter sent, got everybody killed. Nobody likes a narc. She is untrustworthy. Tiferet A, also known as Lisa, is a child. I think she is roughly 8 at this point in the timeline, and I really don't feel comfortable holding her responsible for her actions because she is a child and her brain was stuffed into a claptrap. So we're just going to write this one off. Gebera, or Kali, was initially a hero of the backstreets and a color fixer. After she became a Sapphira, she kind of lost a lot of her heroic tendencies and just kind of became a walking murder machine. After her extremely pain-in-the-ass boss fight, she becomes trustworthy once again. Bina, previously Garian, the Arbiter who killed everybody in the original Lobotomy Corporation branch. Really controlling of her employees, definitely gets a lot of them killed, and her boss fight is a nightmare. So we're going to just go with untrustworthy. The only reason she isn't extremely untrustworthy is she is bound by the laws of being a Sapphira. Carmen is in this game technically. You can figure out where her brain is on day 50, but beyond that, she is almost entirely in flashbacks. Everyone speaks very highly of her, and we don't really have any first-hand accounts of her actions. We also don't truly know her intentions, and every appearance beyond this one muddies the waters further and further. So we'll wait and see. That brings us to Library of Ruina. And hey, Angela's back, and she's basically a different character. She is trying to be more fair than the rest of the city with how she operates the library, though she has a lot of her own character Whoa, what just happened? Weird. So Angela's basically a new character. She tries her best to be honest and fair with how she runs the library. Sometimes she ends up accidentally recreating the structure of the city itself, but we all make mistakes sometimes. She's doing her best, and hopefully we see her again. So we'll say trustworthy. The patron librarians, these were the Sapphira from the previous games. They all return. They retained their character development from the last game, and everyone seems pretty dedicated to trying to help Angela grow as a person, and you love to see it. Everyone gets extremely trustworthy except for Bina, who's only moderately trustworthy because she's still an extremely powerful person who is only following the rules because it plays in her favor at the moment. Lenny is one of the rats that you meet in the very first reception of the game. The very first thing you see her doing is harvesting organs, which is bad, but she is also homeless and living in the back streets, and I think her failings mostly come from a society that abandoned its people, but I still wouldn't want to be alone in a room with her, so we will say untrustworthy. Pierre is a chef who cooks people and believes that the tastiest meat comes from people who suffered a lot. And that's bad. Really, really bad. Extremely untrustworthy. She will just kidnap you and then torture you and then eat you. Lulu is a fixer. She is in a Zwei subsidiary office, and she's great. Really nothing bad to say. She's good with people. She has a bright and boisterous attitude, and she has one of the best early game invitations. Julia and Isadora work for the Zwei. They essentially do cop stuff, but I mean, we've never seen them hit a dog with a sword, so I guess they're doing better than the cops are. They're basically the same character, and they are both trustworthy. The Moeller office are two fixers that were being sent on a contract through Canon office from ArCorp. They end up getting on the train and are barely escaped from the horrible fate of said train. I would say that Mika, the redheaded one, is more trustworthy than Olga because Olga drinks a lot. Angelica doesn't have a talk sprite. She is Roland's wife, and nothing bad to say. Extremely badass character, would have made a wonderful mother, seems to have been an upstanding wife. She's dearly missed. Extremely trustworthy. Eileen is the leader of the Church of Gears. Her dad created the technology to turn people into gears, and she turned him into a gear, I believe, and it's the large one. She still continues the cult of turning people into gears and using them, giving them a place to fit in, but I would say that the way that she describes it is very deceptive, and I'd say extremely untrustworthy. Yuna is a member of the same office as Salvador and Philip. Her weapon appears to be some kind of morphing mass of metal inside of a cello case, which is very goofy. But I like her. She seems fine. Was investigating yesterday's promise before getting axed within the library. No complaints. Trustworthy. Dalok is a member of Gay's office, which primarily works on surveillance and information gathering, maybe corporate espionage. Her head is almost entirely CCTV cameras, and that makes me uncomfortable. We're gonna say untrustworthy. Pamela and Pamela are... Oh, shit. Salvador was a different office. God damn it. I'm gonna have to re-record that audio. They are a pair of small, sassy children, and they are fixers. They have some kind of insurance that gives them full-body replacements when they die. Great. They bully Philip, and then we don't see them again. Elena is the secret identity of the Blood Red Knight, a blood fiend who was previously a star of the city up until her ass got kicked by Roland and Angelica. She is responsible for Tamari and a bunch of other horrible things that happen on the train, and she is extremely untrustworthy. The W Corp agents, Rose and Leslie, they have to clean the train up after it arrives in the station. They are part of a massive corporate cover-up to hide that thousands of years pass when you ride on a warp train, which, on one hand, they, again, are participants in a massive scandal, but you do got to make a living. I'd say that Rose is less trustworthy just because she's worked there longer, while Leslie still has a bit of innocence that hasn't been ground out yet. Martina works for Canon office. She is there briefly and then gone. Her boss is an iPad, Saul Goodman, and I don't know, she's not much of a character. We'll say untrustworthy, or in the middle. The R-Corp agents are Mio and Nikolai. They are extremely violent clones. They really like hurting people. Nikolai is like a quintessential Project Moon aged female war criminal type character. Mio was technically in LobCorp, but when I put this slideshow together, I didn't even see her page on the wiki. Both of these are massive risks to your health, but they are technically core employees, so you might be able to negotiate with them. We're still going to say untrustworthy. Morai is a member of the Index. She transcribes prescripts from the will of the city. She's very off-putting, and her job is sus, so we're going to say untrustworthy. Miranai is a member of the Hana Association. They are the primary fixer office in the city, the largest one, the most prestigious one. She shows up for one invitation and doesn't leave much of an impression, but her key page kicks ass. We'll say in the middle. She's a lawful neutral type. Right, Carmen's in this game too, and we learned that she is behind the distortion phenomenon, behind Angela's quest for the one true book, and many other headaches to come. I believe that her appearance here really muddles things on her motivations, and it definitely makes what we hear about her from the Sapphira and in the flashbacks from Lobotomy Corporation kind of come into question. So again, we're just gonna wait and see. Xena is another arbiter. She shows up in the post-credits fight, and her smug aura is really frustrating. Unfortunately, she can back that up with absolutely incredible power. She is extremely untrustworthy. You do not want to see this black and gold. Finally, let's go to Limbus Company. We're starting with Faust. She is something. We don't really know a whole lot of information about her backstory yet. She knows a lot more than she is ever letting on, but that seems to have a lot more to do with her being part of a hive mind of other Fausts, and when she's disconnected from it, she seems a lot more personable. We're gonna say that she has a long way to go. and we'll say she's in the middle for now. She probably would have been untrustworthy if we didn't see what we saw in Warp Express. Speaking of things that we saw in Warp Express, Don Quixote. I'm just going to say trustworthy. Please play Canto 7. It is very good. Ishmael, hey, Canto 5, also very good. She was a sailor who was on the Pequod under Captain Ahab. Then she became a vengeance-driven sinner who joins the company and confronts Ahab later in The Whale. We will see Ahab later, but for now, I'd say Ishmael is pretty trustworthy. The only thing saving her from extremely trustworthy is we definitely see that she has a bit of a temper, and she also is boisterous and starts fights. Rodian is a mess. She killed a major gangster who was terrorizing the village that she lived in, but that person turned out to be a member of the Middle, which led to pretty much the entire village getting wiped out. And she has a lot of guilt about that. She desperately wants to feel special and is hopelessly insecure. She seems to be reckoning with things currently, but until we get another Intervallo that she's a major part of, she still has probably a time out of the spotlight, so we'll say that she is untrustworthy for the time being. Yuri is an ex-Lobotomy Corporation employee. She is in Canto 1 up until the point where she gets at. It's very unfortunate. She is, in my opinion, extremely trustworthy, though. Herman is Gregor's mom, and we meet her at the end of Canto 1. She is running Old G Corp, which has been absorbed into N Corp, I believe. She's up to something. We don't know what. I'm going to say she's extremely untrustworthy. Saud is a LCB employee. She's part of the Before team. She's generally nice. She puts up with our shenanigans. It's too bad about her partner. I would say she's trustworthy. Cromer is a member of the N-Corp Inquisition. She is staunchly anti-prosthetics and modifying the human form. She killed everyone in Sinclair's family. And really, I think everybody he knew. She's crazy. Just truly out of her mind, and is extremely untrustworthy. Alfonso is the president of K-Corp. We bump into her in Canto 4. She is really cool looking, but as far as I can tell, she more or less took over the company in a violent coup and also wiped everyone's memories using a non-disclosure agreement. I'm going to say she's untrustworthy. Shireen is another K-Corp employee. She helped with orchestrating the insurgent attack on the K-Corp headquarters. She's very judgy and just seems to not be a very nice person, so I'm going to say untrustworthy. Smee is a mini-boss in Canto 5. I forgot she existed until I started making this presentation. She's a pirate, and she implies the existence of Captain Hook in this universe. I'm going to say untrustworthy. Okay, so Ahab. Ahab is the captain of the Pequod. She led everybody on that ship into the Whale, except for Ishmael, who was able to escape. When we see her in the Whale, she gaslight gatekeep girl bosses herself into the center of everything and nearly gets everyone killed in her quest to kill the pallid whale. Horrible woman, extremely untrustworthy. Ezra is a returning character from Distortion Detective. She shows up in the Blade Lineage event. She is a fixer who previously worked with the Seven Association and now is, I guess, contracted to work for Limbus Company. By the way, she's like 6'2". It's crazy. Anyways, she's trustworthy. Josephine is a head butler at Wuthering Heights. She here's the river running under the manor, which was something that at the time I thought was just a book reference. But also, rivers come up again in Canto 7, and also they came up in Lobotomy Corporation, and I kind of didn't really remember that until researching for the revised version of this presentation. So, like, she might have been on to something. Either way, she's not trustworthy. I don't know who this is, but I like her dress. We're just going to move on. Oh, shit, a ghost. Untrustworthy. So Sasha is a fixer that we meet in Murder on the Warp Express. At first, we thought that she was protecting the passengers, but was actually funneling them into a blood fiend's den before becoming a blood fiend herself and getting turned into hamburger meat by Don Quixote. She is untrustworthy. Cesara is a P Corp employee and kind of our central point of contact through to P Corp in Canto 7. Her design's really cool, but she puts off some very off-putting energy, and I don't really like anyone who feels like they can act casually around Virgilius, so I'm going to say she's untrustworthy. Paula is another Zwei agent who is on protection duty for a streamer in a funny hat. She's barely a character, but her design's really cool, and she's a Zwei, so she's trustworthy? Moses is another returning character from Distortion Detective who is in a Zoom call that we participate in. She helped orchestrate the Smoke War, which a lot of people died or got turned into roaches during that, but it also gave us Lobotomy Corporation, so it's hard to say whether or not it was good or bad. I'm putting her in the middle because I feel like she displays behavior that swings wildly in either direction. The Barber is one of the Blood Fiends. We first hear about her from Cassetti in Warp Express. She focuses on making clothing, but she is also a starving Blood Fiend, which makes her incredibly dangerous. And she does more things in this chapter. She's very untrustworthy. Dulcinea is the Princess of the Parade and one of the other major Blood Fiends in Canto 7. She's a little bit better than the Barber, just because her behavior is a little bit less erratic, but she is just as dangerous, and her boss fight's very annoying. I would say she's untrustworthy. Bari is a fixer that we see in flashbacks. She's super cool and implants is the impulse for the idea of Don Quixote becoming a fixer. She's kind of a dork, and I really hope we see her again. She's extremely trustworthy. I think that's everyone. I think we're up to date. Oh, god damn it. Okay, so Carmen's in this game too. She appears in Canto 6, but mostly is in the identity stories, in which she narrates 95% of them, and she comes off as a voyeurist and a huge creep. We're just gonna have to wait and see. So, conclusion. Who is the least trustworthy white woman by game? Lobotomy Corporation has a small sample size. It's gotta be Angela, though. Library of Ruina, little bit more competition. Still Elena. You made to marry, you're going to hell. Limbus Company, it's Ahab. Cromer's a close second. Ahab is just so awful and self-centered, it's gotta be her. You don't want to hang out with any of these characters. They will all be banished to the Sandstorm. But Carmen is less trustworthy than all of them. She has earned the lifetime achievement for making everyone's lives truly more chaotic. I love the city I live in. Never change. What did we learn? Nothing. But this was fun, and I really like thinking about this series and looking at all the characters. I had a good time putting this together. So, if you have your own particular point of interest that you have for this series, pull at that string, make something. You might have fun with it. I'll probably do this again after Canto 12 comes out, though I suspect there's probably going to be a Canto 13. We'll see when that comes out in, I'm assuming, 2027. This is where I would do Q&As if I had any Q's to A. Thank you for watching.